Good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar hosted by Senator Risk Management, whose principal risk professionals are Carlos Rodriguez, Jessica Rosser, Jennifer Schul, Jeff Shockley, and Frank Zimmerman. Initially, we would like to thank the City of Ottawa, specifically Ottawa's Mayor James Watson and Bluesfest for funding our research and investigation into the Cheap Trick stage collapse at the 2011 Ottawa Bluesfest from a risk management perspective. Our main goal today is to provide a precise analysis of certain risk management measures that should have been evaluated pre-2011 Bluesfest, or for that matter, prior to any large-scale performance venue event, so that the interested stakeholders can learn from their historic mistakes and fundamentally so that history does not repeat itself. Today specifically, Senator Risk Management will be analyzing risk through the lens of the Bluesfest venue's owners in large measure, and identifying risks under the venue owner's control, as well as correlated risks. Further, Senator Risk Management will be generally discussing how an ERM process could minimize risks to all stakeholders at events such as the 2011 Ottawa Bluesfest. If you have any questions, I invite you to submit them through our live forum, and we collectively will attempt to answer them in the course of this webinar. For those of you tuning in through Advisen, the co-host of this webinar, a brief historical summary may be necessary. In 2011, the blues band Cheap Trick was performing at the Ottawa Bluesfest in front of a large crowd when a violent thunderstorm tore through the Ottawa Bluesfest, causing substantial property and casualty damage. Thankfully, the stage fell backwards, not onto the crowd, and only 3 individuals were taken to the hospital following the noted stage collapse. So that you can fully appreciate this event and the potential severity of an event such as this, I would like to play a brief 1-minute video of the events that transcribed at the Cheap Trick concert in July 2011. This video is taken from YouTube.
And all of a sudden we see lightning and the stage just fell over.
Several people were injured when the main stage at Ottawa Bluesfest collapsed during a severe thunderstorm. Cheap Trick was on stage at the time and were able to get off safely, but not before they were thrown off their feet, according to witnesses. In a message posted on Facebook, band members said they were lucky to be alive.
And the stage just started to fall backwards. I've never seen anything quite like that before. It was pretty freaky.
Video posted on YouTube captured the scene as the stage, which was several stories tall, falls away from the crowd. Environment Canada had a thunderstorm warning in effect. Winds were expected to reach 56 miles per hour. The spokesman for Ottawa Fire Services said one person was hospitalized with abdominal, pelvic, and leg injuries. Another had a spinal injury, and a third person experienced chest pains. At least 8 others were treated at the scene for minor medical issues. Matt Small, The Associated Press.
Now that you have a more vivid appreciation of the ERM issues in play, having seen the general extent of property damage and potential audience members, I'd like to turn this microphone over to my colleague Jessica, who is going to address specific risk exposures under the venue owner's direct control.
Thank you, Jennifer, for passing the torch to me. Initially, I would like to know the property risks at stake under the venue owner's control. A severe weather event, such as that witnessed in the video, poses risks to the following inventory of property under the control of the venue owner: damage to landscaping, damage to permanent structures such as buildings and restrooms, damage to utilities like power and telecommunication lines, damage to structures currently on the property, the stage for example, and damage to band equipment, stereo equipment, and vehicles at the venue. Moving to the liability risk under the venue owner's control, a general schedule of risks is as follows: physical harm to consumers, harm to band members and celebrities, and harm to employees, concession workers, stagehands, or roadies, including workers' compensation or employers' liability claims. Turning to the financial risks, these include impact on revenue and business interruption for canceling the concert, and future contracting or talent losses. The festival needs to keep a good relationship with the performers. Having identified the basic risks in play from the venue owner's perspective, I would now like to address how venue owners may address these issues. For the property risks previously noted, the following mechanisms are used to manage risk: property insurance, a formal or informal retention, and contractual risk transfers by making those using the property responsible for damages. Concerning liability risks, the following risk tools are utilized: liability and umbrella insurance to finance large or unexpected claims or lawsuits that the owner does not have enough capital to handle; risk retention for those claims they can handle through contractual risk transfers such as hold harmless agreements, regulatory compliance, and ticket restrictions or arbitration clauses. As to financial risk, the following tools are utilized: contracts for contractual risk transfer, as well as insurance; property maintenance and infrastructure improvements to ensure the property is up to code and safe for large crowds; and effective marketing and public relations controls to protect attendees and retain a calm atmosphere. I would now like to pass the mic to Jeffrey, who is going to address correlations relevant to the venue owner.
Thank you, Jessica. Now let's address those risk correlations. Risks for a single stakeholder, such as the venue owner, seem to stand on their own. That is, one stakeholder's risks are not intuitively intertwined with risks from other stakeholders. Let's use the risk categories mentioned earlier for risks that are under the direct control of a single stakeholder, the venue owner, to examine a perspective of risks that may be correlated across stakeholders for the concert experience as a whole. The risks under the direct control of the concert experience enterprise. Property damage might include the damage to the owner's property by concert goers or the entertainers. The structures and equipment brought to the event by the concert's management or entertainers might be damaged by the venue owner's employees or other contractors. And concert goers' property might be damaged or stolen during the concert. Such risk interactions would not be apparent by looking simply at each stakeholder's risks individually. Liability risks might encompass injuries to anyone from venue employees to contractors to the entertainment to concert goers interacting with each other during the event. To manage liability risks across the enterprise, stakeholders may arrange for coordinating and sharing the cost of emergency services. Workers' comp risks include injuries to employees or contractors or volunteers for stakeholders working to deliver the concert experience. And financial risks might include not selling enough tickets and advertising to cover event expenses or perhaps the property mortgage. The failure to deliver the entertainment, for example, because the band didn't show up, they became ill, or they refused to perform, which would require ticket refunds. Or a failure of the stakeholder to get paid for their contribution to the concert experience. What seems to be missed by simply evaluating stakeholder risks only within their own span of control is the risks that emerge from the interactions between stakeholders. So one of the consequences of complex and correlated risks is that identifying them requires an examination of the interactions between the stakeholders. In the concert experience example, a holistic enterprise approach would evaluate the relationships and interactions between stakeholders, such as the venue owner, concert promoters, construction contractors, ticket sales organizations, and the entertainers themselves, and look for opportunities to trade or offset risks among the stakeholders to reduce risk for the overall concert experience. Moving forward, I'd now like to turn the mic to Carlos, who will address risks not under the owner's control.
As to the venue owner, the main risks not directly under their control include the sudden and severe weather, the choice for the show to commence regardless of any weather forecast, the step-up of the stage, and the availability of space. While weather is predictable, the highly severe thunderstorm hitting the Ottawa Bluesfest in Canada in July 2011 was described as sudden and out of nowhere. Winds reached over 100 miles per hour accompanied by heavy rainfall and lightning. Chip Trick, while a substantially famous band, gets paid to perform just as anybody else. Well, maybe a little bit more than anybody else. But it was the festival the one who collected the money from the concert attendees, and they're the ones that did not cancel the show. While Chip Trick could have reneged on performing, they probably would have been in breach of contract, and as such they would have forfeited a major payday. The decision for the show to go on was not in their direct control. The stage was rented by the festival from an outside vendor. The article and some research did not indicate who was in control of the setup and performing the safety checks. Now, we know it wasn't Chip Trick, of course. Many other performers played on the stage and before the Cheap Trick set. So the festival, in either instance, whether they set up the stage or not, had an obligation to ensure that it was safe. The band's vehicles, along with all their gear, were parked directly behind the stage. From videos of the area, it did not appear that the band had much choice on where to park their vehicles. The decision on how to unload or load the equipment and where the equipment was stored would have been at the direction of the festival. When the stage fell backwards, this put the life of their driver at risk and destroyed most, if not all, of their equipment.
This is Frank Zimmerman. I'm coming to you from Senator Risk Management's Clarksburg, West Virginia location. Briefly, I'm going to go over the critical elements of the ERM process, then turn the mic over to Jennifer to apply those to the 2011 Cheap Trick concert. To begin, as you may be aware, an individual must establish the context within which the ERM process will apply. Second, someone, a risk manager, must identify the risk. We've talked about property and casualty risk in our lecture today earlier, so I won't belabor those points. Third, one must analyze or quantify risks via expected loss calculations or other pragmatic factors may apply. Turning to the fourth element, one must integrate risk and view the various correlations among the risk and how those correlations affect the whole. That applies in a context such as a concert setting, just as it applies in a business setting. Just like a business or a firm, a contract or a venue has a series of inner workings, contractual relations, vendors, suppliers, and providers of services. Turning to the fifth critical element of holistic ERM, one must assess or prioritize risk. Obviously, we want to address those risks which have a greater frequency and severity first and foremost, and those would be the risks which we really rank the highest. Moving forward, the last two elements sort of go hand in hand. They are treating and exploiting the risk and monitoring the risk on an ongoing basis. Treatment via insurance, contractual risk transfer, indemnity, and then monitor and review on a periodic basis. With that being said, I'll now turn the mic over to Jennifer, who's going to take us further forward in this webinar.
Turning to specific ERM measures regarding 2011 Bluesfest. Entertainment industry organizations are exposed to hazards in all their business activities, with event procedures presenting significant risks specifically pertinent to the safety of their public, such as the situation that occurred during the Cheap Trick concert. From a risk management perspective, there are several factors that should have been taken into account to avoid the issues occurring at this concert and to avoid additional situations that would be a liability to the organization. As part of a solution, the venue and the concert organizers should have had several personnel to maintain the safety of the concert goers and the talent alike, such as safety supervisors. Their main responsibility would be the development of policies regarding safety inspections, safety monitoring and compliance with said policies, safety regulation, standards, and venue procedures. This team would have foreseen the problems with inclement weather and how it would have affected the stage. They would also work on perimeter administration in order to avoid additional people joining the venue and causing a riot situation. Traffic supervisors. Traffic management is crucial in events where massive amount of people need to be moved efficiently. In an emergency situation, making sure people can safely move and avoid being trampled or making sure they are safely at a distance from possible hazards is a must. Emergency supervisors. Emergencies, such as the weather pattern that wrecked the stage in this concert, could have been handled better had there been a team of emergency supervisors. These people would be in charge of the safety of the workers and patrons. By mitigating all these risks, the organization could have avoided the dangers that caused most of the injuries of this calamity. Before we end our webinar, we must remind you of the 3 critical rules of risk. Number 1, don't risk more than you can afford to lose. Number 2, don't risk a lot for a little. And number 3, consider the odds. Thank you for tuning in. Look for our next webinar in the near future, the Senator Team.